Creepers left to rise, buzz like crazy. Everybody's trying to steal my lady. Spiders in the mirror and feel this can't be right. Back to the scene of a Friday night, to a blessed collision still frozen tight. Spill drinkers Cupid and the sound of her first chime. And why did you argue? We're dreaming of those eyes, the best part of my life. And when we make love, babe, don't make a sound. The clock won't turn around. Ooh, you turn around. 2,000 little fires. And ooh, your circle is spreading.
Hello friends, hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Gonna do another reading vlog. Yeah, today is Thursday, and I like to try and, I don't know what my bangs are doing, they're really driving me nuts. I like to try and have my vlogs now, sort of done by Saturday, because then it's less pressure to try and get them up on Monday, because before what I've did for like years is edit them. Like, I would be working on the vlog all week, and I would even be filming, reading, and editing all day Sunday. So my Sunday, which is my only day off usually from my business, was spent entirely making a vlog, and I just didn't like doing that. So anyway, it's Thursday. I've got today, it's actually kind of late. It's Thursday at 2 o'clock. I got my soda. And we're going to try and do 2 books in this vlog. We'll see. The last few weeks I've been doing 2 books in a vlog, and I think that's mostly because I had a lot to say about those books. And so, because I had so much to say, it just like didn't make sense to add another book in there when the vlog was already like 50 minutes long. So I like to try and keep my vlogs, not that you were asking, I like to try and keep my vlogs between 40 and 50 minutes. That's the length of vlog that I like watching. I don't, if I see a vlog that is like less than 20 minutes, I probably won't even watch it, because that's just like, I don't know, like I feel like I'm not gonna get a lot of in-depth chit chat, you know what I mean? Anyway, hello, welcome, 2-minute intro, just classic Crystal's Bookish Life things. So this week, I have not been feeling great. I've had to go back in for some testing and seeing some different doctors and having a pretty major flare-up, and it's just been terrible. So I am trying to be kind to myself, but I still have a ton of work I need to do, orders I've got to get done and shipped out. And I want a really good, comforting book to read, to listen to while I do that. And so I thought, you know what? I've had this desire. I mentioned her in previous books, and if you've seen the title, you know what I'm going to be reading. But, books? Did I say books? I've mentioned her in previous vlogs that I wanted to get back to reading more of Tessa Dare. Tessa Dare was an author that really got me back into historicals, like a modern day historicals. Her books just absolutely fascinated me, and I kind of got into the habit of reading and rereading my favorites in the Girl Meets Duke series, which I actually haven't even finished yet. But she's the type of author that I feel like is so well loved and is so widely read that I just felt like it's an author that I sort of kept on my back burner, because I'm like, I'll just save her for when I really want a comfort read and a pick-me-up. And well, my friends, now is the time for that. But also, my other reason for picking Tessa Dare this week is that I really want to explore her backlist. I'm very, very interested in favorite authors' backlists, even though I sometimes don't read them all the way. That's just something that I love doing, is going back to seeing earlier works, and specifically I love comparing like the first book that an author published with their newest book. Like, that's one of my favorite things to do. It's just so fascinating to me to see how their writing style changes, to see how the subjects that they tackle change, and how they portray romance. Like, that's something that endlessly fascinates me, is how authors choose to portray relationships in their romances. So anyway, we're doing a Tessa Dare reading vlog this time, and I've already started my first book. I started Romancing the Duke. This one has a beautifully, beautifully familiar step back. You've probably seen it. It's so gorgeous. Like, I mean, he's a good looking man, but like, again, like, I am just captivated by the woman. Like, she is just so beautiful. Look at her back and that dress, like, and her expression. I'm just obsessed with it. So I started reading this today. Listening to the audio, and I am only 4 chapters in. And initially I wasn't really exactly sure what this book was about, to be quite honest. I don't really know what either of these are about. So the 2 books that I picked are the first books in her series. This is the Castles Ever After series. This is the first book in the Spindle Cove series. So I'm excited for that. So initially when I started listening to this, it was just giving me big Duchess of Steel vibes. Like, initially I was like, I really hope this book does something different, even though, I mean, the setup isn't the same, whereas she's a seamstress in the Duchess of Steel. But there were so many similarities with the hero in that he is very grumpy, very broody, very scarred in this book, and similar in the Duchess of Steel, even though I love the Duchess of Steel, seriously love it so much. So I was a little disappointed, because I was like, I kind of hope she doesn't fall into that typical stereotype that some authors do, where you see the same tropes time and time again in all of their books, you know? So I was hoping for a little bit different things to be happening, and it did. Because now, once it was, like, announced in the story that the hero is blind, I was like, oh, that's right, I forgot all about that. I knew that this book had a blind hero, but I had forgotten all about that. So I'm very excited to read that. I think there can be some really wonderfully romantic and swoony romance moments in here, so I'm excited about that. Basically, the premise of this is she is the daughter of I believe he's like a famed author. She's the daughter of him. And she has kind of had this aura around her that he has created, that she's just this little girl who loves adventures and is very, like, whimsical and, you know, kind of like a little go-getter. And that's how people see her as now, even though she's a grown woman. I think she's 24. I actually don't remember how old she is. But she's, you know, approaching spinsterhood, I think. Anyway, she ends up being pretty destitute, and then she finds out that she is actually inheriting this castle, that her father left it to her. However, the castle is owned by this scarred, blind duke. So, obviously, a very interesting premise. There's going to be some just fun, good times here. Tessa Dare's books always feel so relaxing to me. I find them very easy to escape into and get immersed into. It's just, like, this is definitely a comfort read author for me. And I'm just very excited about this. So I have high hopes. I don't see this disappointing me, but, you know, who knows? We'll see. We'll see what I have to say about it. Hopefully I do have some things to say about it, because another reason why I tend to not read her often is because I feel like, not that there isn't a lot to talk about, but maybe the things that I usually pick up on when I read, I feel like I've definitely become more of a critical reader the more that I do reading vlogs and talking about the books that I read. And I feel like that lends itself to my reading style, because I'm not your typical romance reader who reads 2 or 3 books a day. You know, it's a good week for me if I read 2 or 3 books a week. So in order to make some kind of content, I feel like, you know, I want to have hopefully interesting things to say about what I'm reading. Anyway, this is what I'm reading right now. Hopefully I'll have some good things to say. That sounds so dumb. Hopefully I'll have some interesting things to say about this. And then next, we're gonna go with Night to Surrender. And I feel so lucky because it doesn't have a step back, but it's not the illustrated cover, so I'm very happy about that. So, all right, these are the books I'm gonna be reading. I'm gonna get to work, and I'll check in with y'all later. Thanks for being here and watching and spending time with me. I hope you're enjoying yourself and you're finding something out of what I have to say. I appreciate you for being here and watching. I truly do. Hello, my friends. I've got a little reading update for you. So, first of all, I did start Romancing the Duke. I am 100 pages in. I am dearly, dearly loving this. I have things to say about this. However, I did put this book on hold slightly, and now this is the part of the vlog where I have a change of plans. So, I have been wanting to read this book ever since I saw it going around the internet, and it is The Coincidence... No, it's not The Coincidence. I keep thinking that's what it says. The Confidence of Wildflowers. This is by Michaela Smeltzer, and... I don't really know anything. Okay. I am about a third of the way into the audiobook. Let me tell you what happened. So, I have been wanting to read this book. I've been hearing it is super emotional, and like, that's my stuff, right? I want a really emotional romance, and I want a fair amount of angst in there too. So, I wanted to read it. I put it in my Kindle Unlimited library, but I didn't see the audiobook when it first came out, so I was like, dang it, maybe one day I will read it physically when I don't have arcs that I need to read. So then I saw Listen with Brit, who's on TikTok, she was reading it. And I know that she only listens to audiobooks, and so I was like, is that an audiobook? So I went and looked, and sure enough, there it was. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, I want to read this. So then I started listening to it. However, I felt like maybe I shouldn't read it, even though I wanted to, because I already had a theme for this reading vlog, which was Tessa Dare. And then I was like, but I really want to listen to this. Like, I want to listen to it so badly because I didn't really know what this book was about before I started reading it. All I knew was people were saying it was super emotional, okay? And I wanted to read it before too many people had told me about it because I want to be able to form my own opinion about it. I find that when people are really kind of pressing me to read a book, and they're telling me a lot about it, I tend to be very, very critical of that book. And I don't want to do that, okay? I just wanted to read this emotional book with this beautiful cover. Look, it's not like a romantic cover, but this cover is freaking beautiful, okay? And I just wanted to read it, and I don't know why I feel like I need to justify myself. Anyway, my point is, the plans have changed. I'm listening to this book. I'm about 30% into the audiobook. I'm on chapter 17. And I'm not sure how I feel about it yet, because I'm not blown away. However, I am finding it very hard to put down. I want to keep reading it. I want to keep listening. I want to know what's going to happen. And this is an extremely slow building story, but I am really here for that because I think it's giving you a really good look at these characters. I think the characters are done pretty well so far. And I am happy that it is a slow burn because this is the kicker, okay? I did not even know that this book was an age gap when I picked it up. I literally did not. I just heard emotional, and then I was like, I don't want to hear anymore. I just heard emotional. I don't really like to hear a lot about books before I read them. I find that the more that I hear about books, the less excited I am to read it. So, this has a 15-year age gap. The heroine is 18. The hero is 31. Now, if you've seen any of my videos, you know I really, really struggle with heroines who are under 20. Even 20-year-old heroines. Like, I don't like reading about young heroines. I have two exceptions that are some of my all-time favorite books, and they are Dark Notes by Pam Godwin and Torn by Carrie Ann Cole. And they both have heroines who are actually under 18, or on the verge of 18. So I heard that this had an 18-year-old heroine and a 31-year-old hero, and I was like, oh no, oh no. Especially because this was talked about a lot on TikTok where I saw it. And I have found that a lot of what TikTok not the people that I love to watch their content. I feel like I'm starting to curate my TikTok feed for people who talk about books in a way that is enjoyable for me, that's not just lip synced to a popular sound that has a sexy scene. Like, I don't like those TikToks. If you do, that's great. I don't like them. Anyway, so I was hesitant about this because when I saw on TikTok, I have come to associate TikTok readers with wanting a lot of smut. Whether that smut is a lot or not, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't read TikTok books very often because I don't feel like I've found people who recommend books that I want to read. They're usually books that aren't for me. You know what I mean? I am trying to say this in a way that is not bashing TikTok. However, I did have an opinion formed of this book. When I saw it had a huge age gap, I was thinking, please don't let this just be a smut fest. I don't want that. I don't want that at all, especially with such a big age gap. That's just not for me, okay? I don't like it. I'll never like it. It's not my reading preference. So, these clips are getting so long, y'all. I just come out here and I just talk at you. So I started this audiobook, and I was very skeptical. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe I made a mistake, because I bought the audiobook, and I'm like, regretting temporarily. However, it's definitely growing on me. It is a slow-building relationship, and I am so happy about that. There is definitely this attraction between the two of them. The hero moves in next door. He has a landscaping business. He is he's divorced. He's got a young son who's 6 years old. They have this meeting, the heroine and the hero, and there's nothing like about it other than you can feel the chemistry when they meet, and I really, really liked that. I felt like the author did a really good job of showing chemistry without leaning too far into the two of them feeling only lust for each other, because I hate that so freaking bad. I can't even tell you. I have a story time to tell you about a book I just read. Didn't read, started, DNF'd it because of that exact thing, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait to tell you that story until I talk about the Tessa Dare book, because clearly this vlog is going off the rails. So, I liked their chemistry. I liked their setup. I like the hero a lot. He seems like he had a bad marriage. You know, there's a line in here where he says divorce is hard because for him, he realized that what he thought his marriage was, it wasn't that actually, and it was a little heartbreaking, and I want him to be happy. And I'm not opposed to the heroine either. She does read a little immature to me, but I feel like that's realistic because she's 18. So I'm hoping really bad that there is a time jump of some sorts in here before they actually get their happily ever after, because I just don't feel like I'm buying it at this point. Again, though, I'm only 30% of the way in. So this book has what feels like it's going to have some pretty heavy content. It opens with the heroine talking about burying her father. So there's death of a parent, and then you find out that he was emotionally abusive, and the trauma that her and her mom and her sister are still trying to come to terms with, even though her father died of cancer, and they're relieved in a way that he's gone because that abuse is no longer, but then they feel, like all of those emotions that you would have when someone who had a hold over you in an abusive way has passed away, So that happened in the opening scene, and you've seen a little bit of that mentioned in the story, but that hasn't really shown to have huge significance in the heroine's life yet. So I am expecting that to come in later on. There is also, I'm getting vibes that there was some physical type of abuse between someone who was close to her. It's not fully said at this point. I'm thinking that she's probably a victim of sexual assault. That's the vibe that I was getting in there from some nightmares and night terrors she was having. So I feel like this is a very complicated relationship dynamic, and I love that so dearly, and I'm very excited to see where the story progresses, how they're going to attempt to have a relationship, what's going to happen there. Is she going to hide it from her mom? I don't know. It's interesting. I am excited to see where the story goes at this point, because I think it has potential to be a very good one. So, there we go. That's my update. And yeah, I'm going to keep listening to that, and I'll keep you updated. At this point, I don't want to stop reading it, so that's a good thing. And I believe the second book also came out, but I don't think it has an audiobook. Anyway, I'm excited about this. I think this has potential. It could possibly let me down too. We'll see what happens next, so I'll keep you updated when I have a reading update. Sorry that I went awry from the plan. Hello friends, welcome back. Welcome back. I finished a book that I have a lot to say about. I'm gonna rant, so buckle up. Okay, so I finished The Confidence of Wildflowers. I don't know why I want to keep calling this Wildflower. The Confidence of Wildflowers. I finished this book this morning. It is Saturday afternoon. And honestly, I cannot decide if this is a 2-star book or a 1-star book, because this book took such a turn, such an over dramatic and unnecessarily over dramatic and traumatic turn in the last 20% of the book ish, that honestly I just am kind of shocked. So I did not like this book. I actually, and I hate saying that because the beginning started out very slow, which I'm fine with. I like getting to have a background of the characters. I knew this was a slow burn. I did like the setup. Once like we focused on just the romance, just them kind of falling for each other, the Salem, the 18-year-old, and Thayer, the 31-year-old, I liked that. I found myself able to believe in their romance at times. It wasn't perfect. It was not perfect. But there were a few moments in there, that were very beautiful. And I thought, and that is what kept me invested to see how they were going to end up together. So, but that was nowhere near enough to make up for the absolute mess that this book was, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the trigger warnings, because there are multiple trigger warnings in this that are not stated in the author's note or in any review, really. That's not true. I have seen some reviews after I read this that were marked as spoilery that list these as triggers. So I'm going to say all of the triggers in here. If you find trigger warnings to be spoilery and you don't want to be spoiled for anything at all in this book, then feel free to fast forward to the next book, because I feel like these are important to discuss. And if I had known that this specific trigger was in this book, I would never have picked it up. Never, ever. I've seen this book all over TikTok and Instagram. Not a single person has mentioned this trigger. And I don't expect all reviewers to know everyone's trigger, but this one is such a huge trigger, I am a little shocked that nobody mentioned it. And I'm not even gonna, I'm saying if you don't want to be spoiled and you consider any trigger warning something you don't want to know, then click out of the video. But I feel like this needs to be known. Okay, anyway, I am rambling, so let's get into all of the trigger warnings. First of all, I want to read you the author's note, which was not included in the audiobook, by the way, which I feel like is a little unfortunate. However, this trigger warning that the author put in there would not have been enough for me to be like, I don't want to read that, I can't read that, you know? So it says, this book is intended for readers 18 plus and deals with mature themes. There are mentions of sexual abuse, cancer, and death, okay? So I feel like and maybe it was in the audiobook and I just didn't listen to it, because that's such a vague trigger warning that I'm like, I know what I'm getting into with an adult book. An adult romance billed as emotional, right? So in the opening scene, we find out the heroine's father has died from cancer, and we also find out that he was abusive in some form, okay? So I unwittingly felt like that mention of the father dying covered the trigger for death, okay? So I'm going to say, yes, her father dies from cancer. It's the very first opening chapter. Now, this is where I'm going to get spoilery, so if you don't want any spoilers, then just click out, okay? There is obviously those triggers. So the father sexually abuses the heroine. We find that out through just inferring some information. She has nightmares. That was mentioned a couple of times, and she has nightmares because of that, which allow her to have some experiences with Thayer, the hero. But it's mentioned in a way, and she mentions that she has therapy. I thought it was going to be a much bigger plot point for this book than it was, and I felt like it was almost it was just almost blasé thrown in there, right? It was mentioned, and then she went along with her merry little life, okay? There's also cheating in this book, not between the hero and heroine, but the heroine has her high school boyfriend who she does not break up with while she's sleeping with Thayer. Like, she doesn't break up with him, okay? It's not funny, but I'm just like, so that had me being like, why are you that is a sign of an immature person, I feel like. If you don't have, if you are actively wanting to sleep with, and you actually do sleep with someone else, and you won't break up with your boyfriend, who on the page, as far as we know, has done nothing wrong, like, that shows to me a lack of maturity. And how am I supposed to believe that this is a mature enough heroine for a 31-year-old man who has a child? So there's cheating in here, not between the hero and heroine. That wasn't triggering for me. The sexual abuse by the parent wasn't also triggering for me personally, but that is a huge trigger in here. Her mom is also diagnosed with breast cancer, what appears to be terminal breast cancer, okay? That is sort of thrown in there as well. And the big one, the big giant trigger for me, the big plot is death of a child. The big plot of this book is that Salem goes to nanny or babysit Thayer's young son. So this child is a pretty central character in this book. He has a lot of personality in this book. We get to know him quite well. And part of the thing that really sold me on their romance, even though I did find it to not be completely believable, was the fact that they seemed like this little family group, like they were going to start this new family together. And Forrest, the little boy, was adorable, and just his relationship with his dad was beautiful, his relationship with Salem was beautiful, and he dies, and it's never foreshadowed. He's a healthy child, a completely healthy child, and he dies at the very end of the book, and his death is the reason that they break up. So that right there, this book has so many issues. It is such a mess. It is so lazily created. I feel like when I say I want an emotional read, I want the author to do some work that isn't just throwing all of this sadness and despair and trauma and depression your way. That is not emotional. That is lazy writing, because obviously that is going to create a strong emotional response. It is obviously going to. This was handled without any subtlety. Every type of trauma was thrown into this book, okay? This is the biggest hot mess book I have read in a long time. I'm getting so ragey talking about this, I cannot even handle it. I do not understand the hype of this book. I don't understand it at all. It is not emotional in a satisfying way. It is just a pit of despair. Nothing in here happens that ends up being happy. There is no happily ever after in this book. The book ends when they have broken, and it's a duet. I know it's a duet, but still, there is nothing in this book that ends hopefully or happily. The kid dies. Their little imagining of this family dissolves, and because they break up. And I'm just like, what? And then also this last one, she believes that she's pregnant. She takes a pregnancy test at the end of this book. It doesn't tell you if she actually is pregnant or not, but I'm just like, you know, I hate so badly that this author chose to put every single forking trauma she could think of into this book to manipulate an emotional response from the reader. Can you tell that I am upset about this? That is lazy writing, and it is irresponsible behavior. Because why in the world, why is a perfectly healthy child's death used as a plot device to separate the couple? That issue makes me so angry. It's lazy writing. It's poor writing, poor plotting. It's like, why would you do that? Why is that the thing that pulls? If you couldn't tell, death of a child is a huge trigger for me. I'm a mother. That is the biggest part of my life. But also, I feel like even if you are not a mother, even if you don't want kids, it has to be acknowledged that death of a child is a gigantic trigger for a lot of people, okay? Especially when you have come to know this child in the book. So I am upset because this is a duet, okay? But this first book is a tragedy. Nothing ends happily in this book. And look, before you come at me, not you, like my loyal fans and subscribers, but before anyone comes at me and says, well, why does it have to be happily ever after? Like, I don't always need there to be happiness and unicorns. I don't need a rom-com book all the time. I love reading emotional, heavy stuff. I do. But I love it because it makes sense in the story. It makes sense in the narrative. It's not just a cruel, cheap plot device of killing off a kid to separate our couple, because that is exactly what happened with his death. That is the only reason that he was killed, was to separate them. And like every single bit of trauma that was in this book is haphazardly addressed. I mean, it's mentioned she goes to therapy. Oh my gosh, there is so much wrong with this book. There is so much wrong with it. I don't understand the hype. I just truly do not. Because I've heard so many people say this destroyed me, this book destroyed me, and I'm like, yeah, I want to be destroyed. Assuming, and maybe this is my fault, okay? Assuming that there would be some level of meaning to that destruction, Like, I mean, I don't know, because, like, Death of a Child happens in my all-time favorite book. My all-time favorite book, Death of a Child, happens in there. I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. And every single time I say I want an emotional book, it's because I am comparing every emotional book to Still by Kennedy Ryan, which is perfection. That is my perfect romance book. Kennedy handles trauma, pain, sadness, the heaviness of life in a way that never feels like it's unnecessarily or pointlessly heavy. It's all driving these characters together. So while I understand that The Confidence of Wildflowers is a duet, I hated this book. By the time I had finished reading it, I hated it so bad. I will never recommend this book. This book is so terribly put together that, like, I just don't understand. I will never get over the fact that a child's death was used to divide that was the plot device that was chosen. It was chosen. It was a choice. That author made that decision to have this child's death be what causes our couple to separate. I hated it so much. I mean, honestly, like, this book is a mess. It is a mess, right? And it is not angst. This is literally tragedy porn, trauma porn. I cannot even handle the way that she literally put every single trauma you could think of, except for maybe like drug abuse. I mean, that hasn't happened yet, into this book so irresponsibly and not really addressing any of them. There were also like like, the writing just bugged me in a couple of ways. Like, there were so many times when she would say some line, something about, like, I can't even remember, give you a point of reference, but there were several of these where, like, things about, like, she drinks Diet Coke, and they're like, well, you know, Diet Coke is really good for you, and blah, blah, blah. And then she goes off on this little tirade about, like, the morality of Diet Coke, and she does that again with, like, something about masculinity and sexism, and I'm just like, can we not focus on these little pet lessons you are trying to teach us and address the huge trauma that you introduced into the story that serves no purpose other than to create a visceral reaction in your reader without any subtlety or nuance, that it is just thrown at you, forcing you to have this emotional reaction. I hated this book so bad. Hated it. Hated it. And, you know, I feel really bad because looking back on it, I'm trying on purpose to see everything that was wrong with it, because I was so upset by that plot point. That if things had happened differently, if that child's death hadn't been used as that plot point to break them up, I think I probably would have given this book a 3.5. But with that, that's a 1 star. This is a 1 star read. This is an absolute disaster of a book. And I hate that I bought this audiobook, and I hate that I wasted a day and a half listening to it. And honestly, I am so completely turned off by the way that this author chooses, it's her choice, to introduce so many layers of deep trauma without addressing them, using these trauma points as relationship breakers. No. I hated it. I hated it so bad. And I'm going to stop talking about it now. I feel a lot better, because wow, was this ever bad. So yeah, there's my review for that. That's a 1 star. And do you think that I have learned to stop reading books because they are hyped as being really emotional? Probably not. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to my place of happiness and read Tessa Dare, because honestly, I have never in my life encountered what I have encountered so often in indie romances lately, and that is their kitchen sink way of throwing in trauma after trauma after trauma and not talking about it, not addressing the severity of that trauma. I hate that so badly. Historical romance, I have never read a historical romance that does that to me before, honestly. Not ever. Tessa's not going to turn me down. This book is the serotonin that I need. I am sorry for coming in and raging, but like, y'all, someone needed to say it because nobody was. Okay, I love you so much. I'm going to go read Tessa and try to be happy, and I'll talk to you later.
The last breath of summer is blowing down our necks, and soon we'll wave goodbye to the fleeting bliss, because you are like a tidal wave, ripping up my life, not living without a trace. And you know that I'm your silent patient. You know I'm your silent patient. I've been waiting to hold me up. I'll be holding on
my friends, welcome back to my channel for the final clip in this vlog. And I just have to say, okay, so it's Sunday night. I'm gonna edit this clip. I've got the rest of my vlog edited, ready to go. I just have to add this on, edit it, you know. Anyway, my point is, I went back and edited everything that I had, specifically the very long rant about wildflowers. And I left that rant mostly intact. Like, I didn't edit out hardly anything that I said. And as I looked back on that, I was like, wow, you were really upset. I was very upset. And part of the reason that I really love filming vlogs is because I get to give you my in-the-moment reaction, you know? So that's good and bad. Now that I've had a day to think about that book, I feel like I could be less heated in what I have to say about that book. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I guess it depends on your perspective, you know? I mean, I think there's something to be said for getting my in-the-moment emotional reaction, but I also feel like I'm not This is the historical romance, everything that I love about it all wrapped up. So we have our heroine, who is the daughter of an author, and she just recently learned that she inherited this castle from him because he passed away. She has never had a lady's maid, she's never had a cook, and she is destitute pretty much. So she goes to this castle that is extremely run down, and it is owned by the Duke, this scarred Duke. He is very, very grumpy. He has a scar on his face. He is also blind almost entirely. And one of the things I really loved about this book is how the attraction between them wasn't necessarily visually based on the hero's part. Like, he is very attracted to her, and I felt like that was done so well in all of the other ways that he could be attracted to her. Like, the touch of her hand, the way she smells, he can see like her silhouette at certain times of day depending on the light. Her voice, the sound of her voice, I love seeing the hero attracted to the heroine without typical visual cues, you know? I just finished a book, I didn't finish a book, I started a book that I thought was going to be great. It had a really great setup and premise. It was the story time I talked about earlier, but it was a mafia romance. I can't even remember the title of it. It's not, let me look up the title real quick. Okay, the title of the mafia book is Seeking Vengeance by Eden Summers. I think I saw this on just Amazon. It was on Kindle Unlimited. I picked it up, grabbed the audiobook. I was really interested in the premise, which was basically a heroine whose husband and daughter had been kidnapped by a rival mafia. They ended up killing her husband, and she was left with her daughter, who was really traumatized from that event. It was like an arranged marriage with her husband, so they weren't really a deep love connection, but she wants to get vengeance on this mafia. And so she starts like going in disguise, and she's gonna like take him out at a restaurant, when she's met by this man, this big, huge man, who immediately knows what she's doing, and he sort of like takes her out of that situation because he's like, it's obvious what you're doing, and let me help you, we'll bring them down together. And I felt like that was going to be a lot of fun and have great, great, great storytelling potential and a really good romance. And then we get the hero's point of view, the first hero's point of view, and immediately the first thing he says is comments about her physical appearance, and specifically her body parts, like her butt, her boobs, and how hard he is for her. Just all of these things that felt very stereotypical man, right? Like stereotypical alpha man. He notices all of these things that are stereotypically attracted to a man and woman, like curves. Anyway, and it just felt very overdone, and it felt a little gross. And what had started out as this premise to be something really interesting and unique ended up being just like every other alpha male I'd ever read. And I was just like, I immediately lost interest, and then I DNF'd it. I'm not sure if I'll ever pick it back up again, to be honest. It just wasn't anything that really... it just turned me off immediately. I was just like, I'm bored. I'm bored with the idea that you just want to do her, you find her super hot, and that's what the basis of your romance is on. So it was really interesting to me that I had just DNF'd that when I decided to pick up this Tessa Dare, because this is like the exact opposite of that, where he can't see her physical attributes, but he's attracted to her. There's chemistry between them. And I thought it was so beautifully done and so interesting to take attraction and take the man's viewpoint out of it. So what else is he going to be attracted to her about? It's how she acts, how she behaves, what she says to him, what she does, the smell of her hair, the touch of her hand. Like, I mean, that's why I read historical romance, because I love that stuff, you know? And I just felt it was so beautifully done. This was funny, it was witty, it had excellent side characters, great banter, it has some really fun LARPing in here, because the books her dad writes have this huge fan base, and they like dress up in medieval costumes, and it had a great happily ever after. This book was just a bundle of happiness. It made me so happy. It was the perfect palate cleanser after the book I just read. I adored it. It was perfect. I loved it. It's going to be on my favorite list of the yearbook. I'm kicking myself for not picking it up sooner, because it was perfect for me. I had a great time reading it. Anyway, I loved it so much. I truly felt their connection. It reminded me of what a great talent Tessa is, and I feel like I have a really bad habit of not reading some of the popular historical romance authors, even though I have books on their backlist I haven't read to, because I feel like everybody's talked about them, or they get a lot of hype, and I just sort of feel like, you know, I mentioned that earlier, but this book really, really, really impressed upon me, again, something I knew of what a talent Tessa Dare is, and why she's so often talked about. Like, this book was fabulous. I adored it. Seriously, one of the best historicals I've ever read, and just a ton of fun. So if you are ever in the mood where you just need a book that is a pick-me-up, I would highly recommend this. Like, honestly, this is a book you save for break glass in case of emergency, or just read it anytime. Like, I feel like I'm not a huge rereader. I would reread this for comfort. I just adored it. I loved it so much. So, all right, I'm going to end this very long vlog here. Thank you so much for watching. I know I was a little bit all over the place in here. You got a lot of emotional reactions, and I just want to say thanks so much for, watching my videos, interacting with me. I love and appreciate everybody who takes the time to do that. And if you have made it this far, please leave me a doggo emoji, because we're going to get next video, I'll probably have a little bit of footage of our new puppy. So that's exciting. I love y'all. I'll see y'all in my next video.